For what, 5 years, 7 years, Dr. Erika Navarro spent there in the Seattle area. So as you mentioned, they've got a reputation, but this year it's been super active.
It's mostly insult to injury at this point. I mean, because again, Seattle, you get used to it. It's gray, it's rainy, but this is just too much. It's been a lot of rain owing to these atmospheric river events. They're also called pineapple expresses. That's my favorite term for it, because they're tropical in origin. But Alex, look at all of these arrows showing you just the sheer number of events we've had, not only in the Northwest, but even down into California. And again, we typically get these in the wintertime, but we've had 45 so far this year, and that's just well above normal.
Right, and 1 out of every 3 of those strong or severe.
Yes, and these events are almost always linked to flooding that goes on in the Northwest in the wintertime. I mean, some of these can drop an exceptional amount of rain, like over 4 inches of rain in some cases, which is a lot to come down at once. And so, again, we typically get these in October and November in Seattle, but a lot of these events actually occurred later on in the season, which is atypical for this time of the year.
Right, just had a pretty strong storm system move through over the past weekend with the wind.
Exactly. Wind and rain, it's just been like system after system after system coming in, and this pattern just hasn't changed.
Right. Let's talk a little bit more, though, about these atmospheric rivers. I got to share you with Mike now. You got to do a little talk.
You're mine now. All right, atmospheric river. We've talked about him at length here at the Weather Channel before, but the role it played in the weather in the Northwest this year was truly remarkable. And you've got this diagram to illustrate how it happened.
Right. So this is the west coast of the United States, okay? And these are called atmospheric rivers because they're basically just like a fire hose shooting out of the tropics, just streaming tons of precipitation, that water vapor that we often talk about on the satellite, all the way from down here in the tropics, basically up into the mid-latitudes. So this is a very far north transport of this water. And again, they hit these slopes of the mountains here. That's what we've drawn on the map, and as that air rises up above the mountains, all of that water falls out because the air just can't hold it. And so again, we get a lot of precipitation from these events.
You've got a couple of areas marked here. In the foothills here, I just broke my chalk. In the foothills here, you've got a darker shade of green here. That's where you really can squeeze out the most rain before you get to high elevation.
Exactly. I mean, that's why we see the Olympic rainforest on the western side in Washington, because the air hits those mountains and those trees are just so well watered. I mean, it's the cool part about the terrain there on the West Coast.
And then once you get up here to the peaks, it's an entirely different situation then.
Exactly. But again, the main thing with these events is just that they're about 5 to 7 all the time around the globe, and we often talk about them in the wintertime, but they should be tapering off by this time in the year. But we just haven't seen that happen. There's just been a number of events that have come and keep coming.
Did it surprise you how many we had this year, considering we transitioned to a La Nina, or at least a weak La Nina?
Yes, exactly. I mean, they're mostly highly correlated with this. And La Nina, we typically think of a wet winter, at least in the Pacific Northwest. But especially down in California, these events defied expectations for what was, what we thought would happen this year. This was very atypical.
And a lot of these seem to be modulated by almost what I refer to as a semi-permanent Aleutian low, a big low pressure system that was directing those streams and typically down across Washington, Oregon, but that low was strong enough and it moved that stream far enough south that California got into a lot of it.
Exactly, and we're not even talking about heavy rain, but Tom, the snowfall.
The snow was crazy. Mammoth set a monthly record for January, 245 inches of snow, and then up in the Cascades at Mount Baker, they picked up a monthly record for March, which I found amazing as well. So tremendous snowfalls there, more than they've seen in years. They'll be skiing until July in some of these areas.
And especially when you talk about notoriously snowy areas setting records for months.
It's fantastic. 245 inches, 20 feet of snow in 1 month. So,
but there was a downside, though.
Yeah, there was.
We had some really tragic weather that happened on the West Coast this year.
That's right.
A number of floods, very significant floods. The Oroville Reservoir, big issues there.
What happened in San Jose? We had
water rescues.
Near 100,000 people that had to be evacuated.
And really, anytime you talk about one of these powerful storm systems, they're going to offer some strong winds. And unfortunately, people have lost their lives due to that, because a lot of times when you get these rain events, they come with that wind punch really into the Northwest.
And then another topic I think that we also have to think about moving into spring is, with that heavy snowfall in place and the rain coming on top of this snowpack, we can see the potential for even more flooding to occur on top of this.
They're already taking precautions there. Could be a very, very significant snowmelt flood event.
Exactly.
Dr. Navarro, great stuff. Tom Nizzo, it's always great to talk to you about this.
The reason we get these in the water is a process called glacial calving. Calving.
No,
I
you
can't
said
say it.
it's
I
calving.
keep joking that it's calving, and now I actually said it that way. It's like calving, but not moo.
But not moo.
Calving.
So it is calving. And where is the source of all the icebergs that come down through those shipping lanes? It's Greenland, actually. Greenland is like a gigantic glacier. And glaciers are really frozen rivers that are moving. And as these rivers move in a very slow sense down toward the sea, they eventually fracture at the edges here, and pieces break off or calve, and they end up going into the sea as an iceberg. And of course, much of the iceberg, as much as 90%, is well below the surface, but just that top part is what we see above the surface. So that's the process of how the icebergs actually form. So now, I want to talk a little bit about...
I'm not going to leave a lazy boy. So, like, he's a... Go get him,
You know what he's
Tiger.
probably gonna get up there. He's gonna get like Facebook Live or something. We're all gonna be able to watch and be like, seriously?
I mean, when I'm
Great-grandpa's-
50, I'm going to be lazy.
Great grandpa's
fantastic.
killing it up there. But I hope he
Go
does.
him.
My challenge will be to get to the second
I
half.
hope when I'm 76 years old, I'm still dreaming that big.
Yeah,
You know what I'm
right?
saying?
And at 85, you go, you know what? I'm going to redo what I did at 76, which was pretty darn impressive.
Impressive stuff for
Fantastic.
sure.
Go him.
Hey, folks, what's been impressive is some of your questions this evening. We're going to take a little bit of time to answer some of those tonight. Brandon Wright, our weather producer, has them on his computer.
Be willing to bet that if you, especially on these, these nice low precipitation supercells, you get 5 or 6 different people all around it, different pictures from different angles. I bet every one
Yes.
of them looked different.
Could be a little different.
They can.
Shade.
For sure. Depending if you're shooting with the sun to your back or in front of you or
Yeah.
working at the Weather Service.
It's like 90%.
And actually, I believe specifically for our forecasts and building all the graphics we look at it actually is on isolated thunderstorms. There's all sorts of
And
percentages.
50% is a mix of sun and
There are
clouds.
truly categories, though, for
Yes.
this.
Yeah.
Technically, partly cloudy is sunnier than partly sunny.
Right.
Correct.
Wow.
There you
People
go.
probably didn't know that.
Then we have
Question.
Great.
That is a good
We
question.
did say at first it was because like the
Sorry.
mean Girls on Wednesdays we wear red here at the Weather Channel and then Bettis can't sit with us at lunch. But
I
we had a
actually-
very special
I don't
guest.
own a red shirt, and I
I
feel
know.
guilty. I do have my little red. I have my little red
Yeah.
band.
Perfect.
on
Yep.
today.
We
Really
have
got
that
it.
as well.
But we had a really special visitor come into the Weather Channel today, and Jim Cantori got a helping hand from him.
Gave his resume to Jim Cantori today.
Perfect.
It may not be long before he's taking our jobs.
He's a smart kid. You got to
is
do
very-
it, right?
Oh,
But we had a great time. So red was Ryland's favorite color, so we all decked ourselves out
Yeah.
today.
Great day.
What? You say pine cones? Yes.
Tom Nizzle's been working on this one for weeks. It's been sitting on his pine cones have overtaken his desk.
I know.
and I'll bet you're all pining to know.
Indeed we are. folks.
Which one of you guys wants the last grilled cheese sandwich?
That's all yours.
I think Tom Nizzo's